It was the final day of the White House summit to counter violent extremism around the world, and U.S. President Barack Obama branded as an ugly lie the idea that the West is at war against Islam. He called on representatives of more than 60 countries and international organizations to unite. He said they must counter the message spread by terror groups from Boko Haram in Nigeria to ISIL in Iraq. CCTV's Nathan King is here with more on the summit. Nathan?
Yeah, you know, Mike, this week's summit was all about winning hearts and minds on this war on terrorism and extremism, both domestically and internationally, and stepping up, most importantly, the information war against the terrorists.
Coalition bombs hit ISIL targets, but US officials admit military intervention alone won't stop the spread of extremist groups. That's the central message of this three-day summit. More must be done to counter the narrative of groups like ISIL and Boko Haram. Barack Obama called on nations to reject extremism in all its forms, and once again the US president used the occasion to reject the religious connection claimed by many extremist groups.
These terrorists are desperate for legitimacy. And all of us have a responsibility to refute the notion that groups like ISIL somehow represent Islam, because that is a falsehood that embraces the terrorist narrative.
To counter the violent but effective videos of groups like ISIL, the US has announced that it's beefing up its counter-terrorism communications department. And along with the United Arab Emirates, it is launching a new digital effort to create content to counter online propaganda by extremists in the Middle East. While countries involved in the struggle against terrorists, especially in the Middle East, expressed support for the initiatives, some pointed out that solving the political crisis in the region could also help.
Violent extremism is not isolated from events in Syria, Iraq, Palestine, Yemen, Libya, and elsewhere.
And violent extremism now has a global reach, as the attacks in Copenhagen, Paris, Ottawa and Sydney have recently shown. This week's summit searched for ways to tackle the homegrown threat too.
Critics of the summit say the link between Islamic fundamentalism and violent extremism wasn't emphasized enough at this summit. However, Muslim groups are worried about spreading hatred towards their religion and increased scrutiny of their communities. Countries will present plans of action countering the spread of violent extremism at a meeting during this year's United Nations General Assembly in New York.